Hi, I'm Callie. 5 years ago, I met the love of my life, Mark, at a coffee shop downtown. He spilled his latte on my favorite white blouse, and instead of getting mad, I laughed. That's just who I was. Easygoing, always looking for the silver lining. We were married within a year. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, Cal. My family adores you almost as much as I do. Mark wasn't exaggerating. His mom, Eleanor, would invite me for lunch every Sunday, teaching me his favorite recipes. His dad, Richard, always asked for my opinion on his investments, saying I had good business sense. Mark's sister, Valerie, borrowed my clothes constantly, and his brother, James, treated me like the sister he always wanted. You've brought so much joy to this family, dear. Mark chose so well, Eleanor would say, patting my hand during family dinners at their sprawling colonial home, the one Mark and I moved into after we married. It had been in their family for generations, and Mark's parents had gifted it to us as a wedding present. Then Mark got sick. It started with headaches, then fatigue. Within 3 months, he was gone. Brain tumor, aggressive and unstoppable. I was shattered, but I wasn't alone. Or so I thought. At the funeral, something shifted. Eleanor wouldn't look at me. Richard spoke to everyone but me. Valerie and James huddled together, whispering while glancing my way. We need to discuss living arrangements, Richard said coldly at the reception. The house was filled with friends and relatives bringing casseroles and condolences. What do you mean? Well, now that Mark is gone, there's really no reason for you to stay in the family home. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But it's my home. Mark and I lived there for 4 years. It was always meant to stay in the blood family, Eleanor chimed in, her voice sharp. You were just passing through. The day after we buried Mark, they showed up with boxes. We expect you out by the end of the week, Richard announced, standing in my living room like he owned the place. I guess he thought he did. You can't do this. Mark wouldn't want— Mark is gone, Valerie interrupted. And frankly, he always knew this house belonged to the Harrington family, not to outsiders. I'm his wife. I'm family. You were his wife, James corrected. Now you're just— well, nobody. They gave me 3 days. I could only take what I could prove was mine with receipts. Photos, clothes, a few kitchen items. 4 years of marriage reduced to 6 boxes and a suitcase. My best friend Sophia was waiting outside with her car when they literally watched me pack. This can't be legal, Callie, she said as we drove away. They can't just throw you out. I watched my home disappear in the rearview mirror, tears streaming down my face. I don't know what's legal anymore, Sophia. I just know they're going to regret this. I'd been crashing on Sophia's couch for 2 weeks when she burst through the front door waving her phone. You're not going to believe this. Tracy from down the street just sent me pictures of a yard sale happening at your house. I grabbed her phone and scrolled through the images. Mark's vintage record collection, his grandfather's antique desk, our wedding china, all spread out on the lawn with price tags. They're selling his stuff? They're selling his life? That's not all, Sophia said. Tracy overheard Richard talking to a real estate agent. They're listing the house next week. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely dial Daniel's number. He'd been Mark's friend since college and worked at a law firm downtown. I need help, like legal help. 3 hours later, I was sitting in Daniel's office, surrounded by leather-bound law books and the smell of coffee. So let me get this straight. They kicked you out claiming the house was family property, not part of your marital assets? Exactly. Said it was always meant to stay with blood relatives. Daniel leaned back in his chair. That's odd. Mark and I had lunch about 6 months before he got sick. He mentioned updating his will specifically to protect you. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. What? He had a will? He should have. He asked me to recommend someone, and I sent him to Patricia Lawson, best estate attorney in the city. Daniel made some calls while I paced. When he hung up, his expression was serious. Patricia confirmed she prepared a will for Mark. Everything to you, including the house. It was properly signed and notarized. She sent a copy to the court after his death, but then received documentation showing the house had been transferred to Richard and Eleanor a year ago. She found it strange, but assumed you knew. That's impossible. We never transferred anything. The signatures look legitimate according to the county records. Mark's and yours. My blood ran cold. I never signed anything like that. Ever. Then we're looking at forgery. Pretty serious accusation. I spent the next week on a mission. I drove to our old neighborhood when I knew the Harringtons would be at their country club. Our neighbor Mrs. Chen nearly cried when she saw me. Those people changed the locks the day after the funeral. So disrespectful to Mark's memory. Did Mark ever mention a will to you? Of course. We were having tea last spring when he showed me. Said he wanted to make sure you were taken care of. Even mentioned setting up some kind of trust for your future children. I visited 5 more neighbors. Each had a story. Mark talking about the renovations we planned, the future we were building, how the house would always be ours. Then Sophia called again. My cousin works at Eleanor's salon. The things she's saying about you, Callie, it's awful. Like what? That you were after Mark's money from day one. That you tried to turn him against his family. That you're threatening them now for inheritance money. That's rich coming from people who forged documents. There's more. Richard is telling business associates that you're unstable, mentally ill. That's why they had to step in. I walked to the window, watching rain streak down the glass. They have no idea who they're dealing with. Mark knew exactly who I was. That's why he married me. That's why he left everything to me. What are you going to do? I smiled for the first time since the funeral. I'm going to take back what's mine, and they're going to wish they'd never heard my name. The next morning, I met with Daniel at his office to lay out my plan. I need to get them to admit what they did, on record. That's dangerous territory, Callie. If they realize you're recording them, they won't. Sophia's brother works in surveillance. He hooked me up with this. I pulled out what looked like an ordinary brooch. Records everything within 15 feet. Daniel looked impressed but worried. Just be careful. These people have already shown what they're capable of. I waited until Thursday Bridge Club day for Eleanor. When I walked into the country club restaurant, heads turned. I spotted her at a corner table with her friends. Well, look who's here. The grieving widow finally left her cave. Her smile was razor sharp. Can we talk privately, Eleanor? In the ladies' room, I turned on the brooch. I know what you did with the house paperwork. Eleanor's face hardened. You can't prove anything. Why did you do it? I loved Mark. We were happy. Happy? Please, Mark was going to leave you. He told us right before he got sick. I knew she was lying. That's not what his will says. Her eyes flashed with panic before she caught herself. What will? There was no will. The one your family made disappear. The one that left everything to me. You little snake. You think you can come into our family, steal our property, and get away with it? It wasn't your property. Mark wanted me to have it. She grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. Listen carefully. That house has been in the Harrington family for 3 generations. We are not letting some nobody gold digger walk away with it. Back off, or you'll regret it. Are you threatening me? Take it however you want. But remember, we have friends in this town. Important friends. Judges, police. One word about a fake will, and you'll find yourself in serious trouble. Perfect. All on record. Next, I visited Mark's cousin Rachel, who'd always been kept at arm's length by the family. I'm not surprised, she said, pouring me tea. They did something similar to me. Uncle Richard was supposed to set aside money for my college fund. He invested it for me. Disappeared completely. Would you be willing to make a statement about that? Honey, I've been waiting years for someone to take them down. I tracked down 3 more relatives with similar stories. Mark's first cousin Thomas, his Aunt Beatrice, even Richard's former business partner. They pushed me out of the company we built together, Paul told me over lunch. Forged my signature on transfer papers. Sound familiar? Meanwhile, Daniel was building our legal case. We've got the testimony from neighbors about Mark discussing his will, statements from Patricia confirming she prepared it, and now recordings of Eleanor essentially admitting to destroying it. What about finding the actual document? Still working on that? If they didn't destroy it completely. That's when I remembered. Mark's old fishing tackle box. The one thing they didn't sell at the yard sale because Richard hated fishing. Sophia, I need to get into the garage. We went that night. The box was still there, dusty in the corner. Inside, beneath the lures and hooks, was a waterproof pouch. And inside that, the will. Original. Notarized. Exactly as Daniel described. The next morning, James was waiting outside Sophia's apartment. Back off, Callie. Dad says you're harassing family members, spreading lies. Not lies, James. Evidence. His face paled. What are you talking about? I have the will, the real one, and recordings of your mom threatening me. It's over. That afternoon, my car tires were slashed. A brick came through Sophia's window. Daniel received threatening calls. They were scared, and they should be. The courtroom was packed when our case went to trial. Daniel arranged documents on our table while the Harrington family huddled with their expensive attorney across the aisle. All rise for the Honorable Judge Catherine Moreno. My hands shook as Daniel presented our evidence. The original will, the recordings, witness statements. Richard's face turned crimson when the forged documents appeared on screen. Your Honor, we've subpoenaed the Harrington family's financial records, Daniel announced. We found something concerning. Not only did they forge documents to steal Mrs. Harrington's home, but bank records show transfers from Mark Harrington's personal accounts to his parents 2 days after his death, before they had any legal authority. Eleanor whispered furiously to their lawyer. Furthermore, they took out a second mortgage on the property using the forged documents. During cross-examination, Richard cracked under pressure. Yes, we took steps to secure family property. That house has been ours for generations. Even though your son legally owned it and willed it to his wife? He wasn't thinking clearly. She manipulated him. When Eleanor took the stand, she remained ice cold until Daniel played the recording of her threatening me. You doctored that recording, she shouted, jumping to her feet. Mrs. Harrington, control yourself, Judge Moreno warned. After 3 days, we returned for the verdict. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Callie Harrington. The defendants engaged in deliberate fraud, forgery, and harassment. The property is rightfully hers according to the valid will of Mark Harrington. Additionally, this court awards punitive damages of $750,000. Evidence of threats and property damage will be referred to the district attorney for criminal charges. Outside, Valerie approached me. You've destroyed our family? No, you did that yourselves. 1 month later, I watched as a for sale sign went up outside Richard and Eleanor's house. Their business had lost major contracts after the case made local headlines. Eleanor was facing criminal charges. Daniel helped me file paperwork for the Mark Harrington Foundation for Widow Advocacy. He would be so proud of you, Callie. Yesterday, I finally moved back into my home. As I unpacked, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Chen stood there with a casserole. The neighborhood hasn't been the same without you. I looked around at the house Mark and I had shared. His fishing tackle box sat on the mantel. The garden we planted was overgrown but salvageable, just like my life. Last week, Eleanor was sentenced to 18 months. Richard's business filed for bankruptcy. James and Valerie left town. Sometimes justice takes time, but it always comes. What would you have done in Callie's position? Fought back against the family like she did? Or would you have walked away to avoid the conflict? And do you think there's ever a point where forgiveness would have been better than revenge? Or did the Harringtons deserve everything they got? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of justice served, please hit that like button and subscribe for more compelling stories. New videos every day about people standing up for themselves and getting the justice they deserve.